尊敬的习近平主席，亲爱的。
Еще больше укрепилась и продолжает интенсивно развиваться.
Пересвет. Завершаются испытания крылатой ракеты неограниченной дальности «Буревестник». Кровопролитных боях от Мурманска до Кавказа и Крыма.
国际迫切的问题上。
Мы внимательно ознакомились с вашими предложениями по урегулированию.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has set the tone for this upcoming state visit to China. The historic visit is now preceded by scathing criticism of Western interference and commendation of China's constructive approach to the Ukraine crisis. In a written interview with Xinhua, Putin underscored the historic friendship between Russia and China, emphasizing their shared values and mutual support. He also highlighted the significant economic impact of their bilateral cooperation, particularly in trade and energy sectors. As Putin prepares to strengthen ties with China, his remarks signal Russia's strategic priorities and diplomatic stance in a changing global landscape. Putin emphasized in the interview on the historic significance of Russia-China relations, dating back to their joint efforts during World War II. He highlights the strong cultural ties and people-to-people exchanges that have characterized the relationship over centuries, citing examples of historical cooperation and mutual admiration. Additionally, Putin points to the economic impact of their partnership, noting the substantial growth in trade and investment between the two nations. He mentions the successful completion of energy projects and the expansion of bilateral trade, underscoring the resilience of their economic ties amid global challenges. Putin's remarks include a critique of Western interference in global affairs, accusing Western elites of imposing their values and denying sovereignty to other nations. He describes Western actions as neo-colonial and highlights Russia's opposition to Western dominance. Putin's criticism reflects Russia's ongoing tensions with the West, particularly in light of sanctions and diplomatic conflicts. US-led Western elites refuse to respect civilizational and cultural diversity and reject centuries-old traditional values. Seeking to retain their global dominance, they have usurped the right to tell other nations whom they may or must not make friends and cooperate with, and to deny them the right to choose their own development models. They disregard other countries' sovereign interests. They seek to ensure their well-being at the expense of other states, just like in the old days, and resort to neo-colonial methods to that end. Needless to say, neither Russia nor its partners are happy with this state of affairs. We have actively contributed to launching multilateral associations and mechanisms that are independent of the West and are successfully operating. Our countries have similar or coinciding positions on key issues on the international agenda. We advocate for the primacy of international law, equal, indivisible, comprehensive, and sustainable security at both the global and regional level, with the UN's central coordinating role. We also reject Western attempts to impose an order based on lies and hypocrisy, on some mythical rules of no one knows who's making. In contrast, Putin commends China's approach to resolving the Ukraine crisis, praising Beijing's awareness of the conflict's root causes and geopolitical significance. He highlights China's proposed principles for conflict resolution, which prioritize peace and stability while minimizing negative impacts on the global economy. Putin's praise underscores Russia's support for China's role in fostering stability in the region and resolving international crises through diplomatic means. We commend China's approaches to resolving the crisis in Ukraine. As for the additional 4 principles of conflict resolution recently voiced by President Xi Jinping, they seamlessly fit in the above-mentioned plan. Beijing proposes practicable and constructive steps to achieve peace by refraining from pursuing vested interests and constant escalation of tensions, minimizing the negative impact of the conflict on the global economy and the stability of global value chains. The steps build on the idea that we need to forego the Cold War mentality and ensure indivisible security and respect for international law and the UN Charter in their entirety and interrelation. Unfortunately, neither Ukraine nor its Western patrons support these initiatives. They are not ready to engage in an equal, honest, and open dialogue based on mutual respect and consideration of each other's interests. They are reluctant to discuss the underlying causes, the very origins of the global crisis, which has manifested itself inter alia in the dramatic situation around Ukraine. Why? Because today's global shocks have been provoked precisely by their policies in the previous years and decades. Instead, Western elites are stubbornly working to punish Russia, isolate and weaken it, supplying the Kiev authorities with money and arms. They have imposed almost 16,000 unilateral illegitimate sanctions against our country. We are seeking a comprehensive, sustainable, and just settlement of this conflict through peaceful means. We are open to a dialogue on Ukraine, but such negotiations must take into account the interests of all countries involved in the conflict, including ours. As Russia seeks to deepen its partnership with China, Putin's criticism of the West and praise for China's role in global affairs signal a strategic alignment between Moscow and Beijing. The state visit is expected to focus on further enhancing cooperation in trade, energy, and strategic sectors, as well as discussing key regional and international issues of mutual interest. China and Russia's shared criticisms of Western interference and emphasis on diplomatic solutions to global conflicts are likely to take center stage. The West, particularly NATO and the United States, have been critical of China and Russia's defense ties, accusing them of enabling conflicts such as the Ukraine war. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken recently raised concerns about Chinese defense equipment supplied to Russia being used in the Ukraine conflict during his visit to China.
The war in Ukraine demonstrates that security is not regional, security is global. The main country that is enabling Russia to conduct its war aggression against Ukraine in Europe is China. They are by far the biggest trading partner for Russia. They are delivering critical components to their weapons, electronics, advanced technology, which is enabling Russia to build missiles, drones, a lot of other stuff, which is key for their war against Ukraine.
70% of the machine tools, 90% of the microelectronics. are coming from China. Now, these are dual-use items, but we know very clearly where so many of them are going. And this poses two problems. It is enabling Russia to continue the aggression against Ukraine, so it's perpetuating a war that China says it would like to see come to an end, as all of us would. But second, it's also enabling Russia to rebuild a defense industrial base that countries throughout Europe are deeply concerned will be turned against them after Ukraine is done.
The West will be watching the Xi-Putin tango closely, mindful of the implications of closer cooperation between Russia and China. The unity displayed by Putin and Xi in their criticisms of Western interference signals a potential shift in the existing global world order and an emergence of the new. The outcome of their meeting will undoubtedly shape the dynamics of international relations, with implications for global security and stability.
И сейчас в расширенном составе с участием